Welcome boys and girls, Christine here with a discussion about the High Elf rework in the Tides of Torment DLC for Warhammer 3. Lots of things have changed, some things haven't, but let's start by talking about RatEmperor.
I am vengeance, I am the knight, I am...
Not Eltharion.
Now our favorite Skaven cosplayer over here that starts in Nagrand is the one campaign that benefits immensely from the High Elven rework. Because you see, RatEmperor has always been a good legendary lord, but he's been dragged down by the previous dynamics of the race, be it confederations, for instance, the tech tree, the limitations on a campaign. He does have Shadow Realm pathway, so an underway stance. He does have stock stance, so he can do ambush attack. Not against settlements, but against armies on the field. And he can do so with every single army that he does have. That is a significant level of power, but his campaign has always been limited. Limited in the scope of where it could mean anything. Because he does have these assassination missions as well. They give him a ton of influence, which is going to be very significant given the High Elven rework. But you would get these kind of missions, you would get these kind of benefits, as buggy as they could be and still are, such as, for instance, getting a mission halfway across the world, or missions that, even when the target is killed, you still have to wait for the turn timer, the 20 turn timer to actually expire to get new ones. System could be improved, but RatEmperor always worked, and he always worked from the perspective because you had the choice, stay in Nagrand and eliminate Malekith early on, or go to Ulthuan. Pros and cons. The con of staying in Nagrand is that you don't secure Ulthuan, which means Noctilus, Nakari, Morathi can then destroy it, which limits your confederation options and just gives you a different issue to deal with. Stay in Nagrand, you eliminate Malekith and before he takes down Grombrindle and gives you a very powerful ally that secures your entire northern flank. That is the dynamic RatEmperor has always had. What have they changed for him specifically? Well, all they did was add 2 new climate options, Temperate and Temperate Island. Those were unpleasant. So it meant while his campaign power was always high, it was always limited by climate. Because that's what climate does. It acts as a limiter in the campaign. It means you can still go and conquer the world, but what is the incentive structure to do so? Now you have a bigger incentive structure because it means that choice between Nagrand and Ulthuan suddenly becomes much better. You can genuinely spend your entire campaign or a good portion of it in Ulthuan, especially for the sake of the Shadow Crown, or you can ignore Ulthuan. There's probably all kinds of strategies around it. It does depend on randomization of faction potential, basically which factions are going to become stronger. Because some campaigns, Malekith gets wiped out by Grombrindle or Valkia. Other campaigns, he's ruling the entire corner of Nagrand. It depends on that level of randomization. So that is a factor, an important one to keep in mind. And the climate situation just means you have more than Nagrand, Norsca, and Kislev to go for around the map. And with, of course, him also having Wasteland and always having had Wasteland and the mobility he has through Underway, he's actually better at playing Eltharien's campaign than Eltharion. He's better at playing Imric's campaign, even though he doesn't have mountain climb, but he's better at playing Imric's campaign from a simple perspective. He navigates the terrain around it better. That is a factor, and no, Eltharion and Imric haven't been changed. Though keep in mind, there's still time between now and the full release for CA2 to implement changes, and they have been changing a lot of stuff. There will be things you see in this video or other videos compared to what they've shown in the trailers, for instance. It's a process, QA, balancing, etc. always happen last. Okay, with that said, what have they changed for the High Elves as a race? Well, the most important thing is the Patrons of the Realm mechanic. So Patrons of the Realms gives you these various seats in different provincial capitals in Ulthuan. You take a seat by selecting a lord having furry influence in a location. So, for instance, taking in a slow replacing Teclis in this situation. Again, the throne seats, there's a certain turn timer limit when you take a seat or someone's been eliminated, like if a minor faction gets eliminated. It does work like that. Okay, all well and good, functions. What do the seats do, and how do you take them beyond influence? Because there's more to it. Well, the provincial capital needs to be controlled by elves. If you do want to upgrade the seat, which costs, initially, once you do take the seat, it costs 100 to get to tier 2, and 150 to get to tier 3. There's various events at tier 1 and tier 2 where people try and remove you from the seat. Once you get to tier 3, you cannot be removed from that seat. You get benefits from the Lord, some faction benefits as well. Like, for instance, in this one, I gave Alif and R the Illyrian seat, which gives them 20% campaign movement range. It's probably the most useful of the seats themselves. There's other things as well. The seats themselves are useful. You are building all these armies, customizing it. I would have preferred if the tier 3 benefit at least was something faction-wide, because most of it isn't. I mean, you do get income from industry, buildings, favor, all that. There are some faction benefits here, but they're limited. So keep in mind that typically at the tier 3 seat, you are going to get favor of the Phoenix King. And what does favor of the Phoenix King actually give you? Well, it allows you to take the seats. Basically, if you've got very low favor, you only have so many patronage seats you can take in the first place. And then you get up to 11 positions. There's a limit, depending on how much of Ulthuan is controlled by the High Elves. So High Elves do have the focus on worrying about Ulthuan, at least politically. They do have the focus on, dependent on campaign RNG with Tyrion, Elfarian, Alariel, they do have the focus on potentially going there, and I emphasize the potential aspect. So you do have that decision when you're playing Elfarian, when you're playing Imric, when you're playing Teclis. You do have that specific decision in order to get maximum capacity of favor of the Phoenix King. The way you earn favor and increase the tier is, usually speaking, through battles. A couple of other actions, but usually you fight a battle, you get favor of the Phoenix King. You can also lose favor of the Phoenix King. You raise or sack elements in Ulthuan, or you go to a disorder faction, and then you, say for instance, engage in diplomacy. Any kind of diplomacy. So for instance, getting a peace treaty over there with Luthor, that did reduce the favor of the Phoenix King right there. Venobar might not be present in the campaign map, but he's certainly present in the dynamics of the game as you are playing it. And that's kind of appropriate for him. Would be nice to have a model or some icon to represent him at the very least, but all the same. Now, once you've taken certain seats, you can then use Court Unity to confederate. You will need tier 5 in terms of favor of the Phoenix King in order to get the first confederation, and it goes to tier 6, tier 7. There is no cooldown on confederations. You just get to the level you need, you go through Court Unity, and then you can confederate multiple factions at once. Realistically, you probably would not want to wait. You would confederate instantly the moment you can confederate instantly in a campaign. Different seats, different confederations have different requirements. Usually it's having the patronage seats in certain provinces, so it means that province needs to be controlled by High Elves, so you can upgrade it to tier 3. It means keeping it under control, matching that condition, reaching the level, the tier of favor of the Phoenix King, and then you can confederate. Different requirements, so you get Kaldor, Katik, Everest, For Alifar, it's Crix and Nagrif. You obviously don't have your own seat requirements shown over here in this menu. The exception is with Aislinn, who requires you to control Elven colony settlements. Elven colonies are locations like Arnheim, locations as, if I scroll down here, the Star Tower, the Citadel of Dusk, Teclis' starting settlement and Fortress of Dawn, and then even settlements over here for, and I'm not sure why it's looking like that, but also settlements over here in the eastern colonies that are controlled by Aislinn, as well as a minor faction, the United Maritime Patrol. That's associated with Aislinn. I'm not going to go into details on that, but it is an independent faction. It's not a vassal. You can engage in diplomacy. You can't confederate it, okay? But you can engage in diplomacy with it. I would say the downside is that you don't have a way of certain confederation with minor factions. So Safri, Terranok, Kalador, Grace, Katik, it's better to wipe them out than actually engage diplomacy or play the long game and get that confederation in the end. But it's not a guaranteed situation. And unlike, say, dwarves have an easy time with confederation of other dwarven factions, minor ones, that is. That doesn't work for high elves. I'm not quite sure as to the reasons why. I've always speculated it's faction strength, control of Wolf 1, faction danger. Because you're on an island, the faction danger meter doesn't fill up, even when they're at war with so many factions. That's something of a problem when Marafi's blowing up Illyrian and you just want to confederate them to sort that situation out so that she doesn't bypass the gates Illyrian holds. But it is a factor that we do have at the moment to go through in a campaign. Just going to disband some units right here. Okay, so that's part of it. The confederation situation in a campaign with the high elves, the seats. My perspective on it, the seats themselves, the benefits they give are not necessarily meaningful. They're not electro count seats, which give you items, regiments renown, or kind of regiments renown, and genuine faction benefits. There are some faction benefits that are pretty limited. So it's not as tangible, but it is a system that allows confederation and gives you incentive structures to use it different ways. The easiest to confederate is, in fact, Alariel, because you only need to have the Avalorn seat for her. The best to confederate is, of course, Tyrion, partly because of the campaign movement range, partly because of Lawfern, partly because Tyrion is extremely powerful. Though, again, dynamics change from campaign to campaign. What else have they done for the High Elves? Well, there's been changes to rights, the cooldown of rights, certain effects like, Invocation of Syrians, 15-turn cooldown, 5-turn duration, various things, right? Cooldown, duration, I think they've changed it somewhat. I couldn't give you an exact number on things, but yes, I do feel the rights themselves have been changed a bit. Not as much as they probably should have been. Then the other very significant change for High Elves is their research tree, which is the baseline of what we expect from CA. So we have the host, so we have a military research tree. There are certain things still locked behind buildings, which not ideal. But then the main research tree is going to be in the realms. The important thing. So you do still have trade advancements. They still require trade buildings. Again, certain things haven't been changed as much as they should have been. The important one, though, is cultural advancements. Available from first turn of the campaign, just cost money. Now, this is great. The reason it's great is because they just cost money, they're finished in one turn. Not everything over here is going to be worth it, like diplomatic relations with order factions is kind of fluff for High Elves for 4k gold. So other things are really good, like echelon manipulation, income from buildings, influence cost for intrigue at court actions, or all regions owned by factions they have trade agreements with are visible. Things like income from trade tariffs, growth, campaign movement range, construction cost, court advisors, those things do matter in a campaign in quite a bit. Also, regions being made visible in your own faction. Now, there's of course specifics with Iceland that are a bit different. One of the things you would probably see with Tides of Torment is that research trees can be a bit different depending on the faction you're playing on. That's more of a Norse-slash-y thing, but it does play a role a bit for High Elves as well. The main changes for High Elves are Teclis, Tyrion, the court system. I'll get into Tyrion and Teclis. The reason I'm using Alefanar for this video specifically is because he's the most impacted campaign in a way that doesn't feel like just, oh, let's slap a new system on something. This is not slapping a new system. It's still the old system. It's still the randomized assassination missions that you restart the campaign over and over again until you get the ones you want. It's still the one that breaks often, not the one fix. Community mod fix will probably resolve that. Those kind of things. Still work to be done. But it's an impact where it shows that just changing 2 climate options and giving a guaranteed confederation system just shows how smaller changes, when done properly and with thought and care, can make a campaign better. Alefanar is not a stronger or weaker legendary lord than where he was before. He's just better able to use the tools of his race to have a far more enjoyable and dynamic campaign. That's the key difference between him, Tyrion, and Teclis. Because Tyrion and Teclis, things have changed, substantially so. But they haven't changed the entire campaign dynamic that they have to deal with right there. Though, to be fair, I haven't checked Tyrion and Teclis in a while. And keep in mind, there's still plenty of patches happening in this version of the game. So the research tree is great because it forces you to make decisions from turn 1. Do I spend my research tree to get things like light Fulmar armory or armor? Or do I spend a lot of money but then get vision with spy networks? And also things like United Local Mobility, Rapid Resettlement, different benefits. They're money, but it's a decision. Do I spend the money, spend the turn, get the benefit? You gotta manage these things. This is how you handle a research tree well. You give players choices in different parts of it. They're as useful as others, because you're gonna even if you unlock everything very quickly and then switch immediately to military choices, and you probably shouldn't unlock everything very quickly, that's still a choice. One that even dwarves don't have, or cast dwarves, and they have great research trees. This is a superior one. Still limited by, you need certain buildings to unlock certain things. It's just, that's the annoying aspect, that's the limiting aspect, and it shouldn't be done. Still a pacing issue. Still CA operating on the model of people play 100 turn campaigns when people play turn 60 campaigns, according to their own statistics. Okay. Those are the great things. The amazing things, the things that work, that make the race better. What are the things that don't work necessarily as well for the High Elves? And the one thing I saw very clearly, the one thing I noticed the moment I booted up Tides of Torment with regards to this. Well, first off, we can talk about influence. Now, you do have a better influence gain than before. So right here I have 157 influence. If I go right here and just, auto-resolve that, take a bunch of casualties, 160. That is a bit of influence instantly, but it's more than that. You have constant influence events. Every turn you start, you don't just get 6 or 7 or 20, you get a lot of influence during the course of the campaign. Far more so, because you're going to be spending far more influence than before. It is especially notable for Tyrion, who gets a lot more influence fighting on Ulthuan when you are playing him. So, in fact, as Tyrion, you kind of want the Ulthuan fight to last longer because it gives you more influence to play around with. In fact, you might just want to abandon large portions of Wolf 1, come back later, and worry about, say, rushing Marathi. It's still a decision to be made with regards to this. Things that have been changed with regards, things that haven't been changed with influence, the problems. Intrigue at Court is still a messy UI that should have been thrown in the trash bin 4 years ago, before Warhammer 3. Hell, maybe from the start of Warhammer 2, so it's still a mess, it's still a pointless, fluffy system. That hasn't changed. Traits for lords and heroes are still questionable thing at most. There are improvements, without a doubt. You still get negative traits, but they are rare. They still happen, but you also get neutral lords with traits that are just positive. Like, for instance, you get prudent, 10% ammunition. I'm not sure why you still have negative traits just to, instead of just, removing negative traits, because no one's going to recruit a lord with a negative trait when they have a positive one without an influence cost. So who's going to pick inhibited, right? As opposed to just going into, say, a mage tree and then finding the one that would be ridiculed. That's the problem with negative traits. We ignore them, and we get ridiculed on the mage that does have it. For instance, mage, archmage, and all that. Some costs have been reduced. If we look at princesses, I'd say they're the ones that have been updated the most right now. So you get dashing, 30 influence, and it's a pretty big benefit. We can look at certain things. Like, it feels like not fully finished, and some things are like, oh yeah, spend 60 influence for sundering attacks and 30 charge bonus. That's not worth a damn. Or resistant. Or you can spend 60 damn influence on administrator, right? Or you use the load save character system to bypass this ridiculous system. Been a ridiculous system. They did not fix it. They should have fixed it. That's where we are. And yes, it is not great. Then, we still have the victory condition that gives us +3 hero capacity to all heroes on short campaign. Some of these victory conditions are good. Some of them have been slightly updated. Tyrion is not where it needs to be. Last I checked, it was still Malekith, which is like... Malekith is not a short campaign victory condition. It's a long campaign victory condition, given his starting situation. Again, some updates. Some are better than others. Now you might ask, why does it matter? Well, it doesn't matter when the benefit is, say, wins a magic or recruit rank. It does matter when it's hero capacity. And especially because of the way high elves do work. Because then we look at the most important thing, the building tree. And I want to give people an idea here. The building trees for ogres, greenskins, and Khorne in Omens of Destruction are amazing. Same with the building trees for dwarves and Empire in Friends of the King. This is not that. This is more like Nurgle 2.0. Don't take it as a review or a final form. It's not a final form. It's not a review. I'm saying what it is. I'm not telling you necessarily it's like, oh, do this or, rage at CA or whatever. But here's what I'm going to tell you. What was before and what is now. We still have an economy based on the idea of maximizing control in provinces. We still have a controlled building that also gives us money, but also now gives us a bit of influence. That's one reason we have more influence than ever before. Okay, all well and good. It doesn't work, I think, not because the money isn't there, but rather the incentive structure. People will argue that high elves play slow. They don't play slow. That's the thing about high elves. That's the core aspect about them. That's a core aspect of Warhammer 3. You don't play the game on different pacings. Or rather, the better way I can say that, you can play the game however you want, as any race. It can be Khorne, the most hyper-aggressive race in the game, can be played at the slowest pace you want, and still win it. It doesn't matter. What matters is, does the game and the racial design match the actual pace of the game? Does it allow you to play slow? Does it allow you to play fast? And you can beat the game with basic units, archers and spearmen. What's important is that variety, that pacing. It's unlocking things and using things. Not having things that are available 16 turns in a campaign when you already control all of Nagrand and Ulthuan. This is, by the way, turn 37 of this campaign. And most of Ulthuan and Nagrand is basically under my control or will soon be in 10 turns. And this is not me even trying. Or it's under control of allies or factions that I'll never have to fight. I don't have to worry about Marathi, for instance, in this campaign. And even if I do, it's just like, okay, I throw 10 armies at Marathi. That's not a campaign. That's just the button clicker. If you want to play the button clicker, I'm not going to hold it against you. I'm just calling it what it is. And here's where we get into the issue. What I feel on this. This is my perspective. This is where I stand. What has defined High Elves is the fact that you can win the campaign with Spearmen and Archers. And you have no reason whatsoever to ever use anything other than Spearmen and Archers. People will cope hard on the idea, oh, you can just use other units. Okay, I can use other units. It's fluff. It's fluff because for those other units, I have to sacrifice building slots. I have to make the conscious decision to use them. And I could get an extra army of Archers and Spearmen. And even White Lions. The choices we have available in terms of unit roster are this. Archers, light armor, Spearmen. You do get the new units here and there, right? Sea Patrol, all that. But those are the decisions. Every other decision until tier 3 is kind of whatever. There have been some changes here. But the cavalry building change, the farrier, pointless. No one's recruiting silver helms in a campaign. Or no one needs to. See, when you're playing an Empire campaign, you recruit cavalry. Not because you can, but because you need to. High Elves don't need that. For Empire, you need that because of the foes you're dealing with. The fact that your not because your infantry is weak, but rather because cavalry gives you a genuine mobility and it doesn't cost you to do so. There's benefits to recruiting cavalry in an Empire campaign. The benefits are Legendary Lord, for instance, having the building slots in the settlements you control in order to do so, especially as Karl Franz. Having regiments renowned that are cavalry, having the state troopers that are cavalry. That's the reason you recruit cavalry as the Empire. It's available, it doesn't undermine you, and it's actually useful. Silver helms are not useful, and the building slot is a genuine downgrade to your capabilities in a campaign. And that's the same damn thing with Great Eagles, War Lions, which have been reduced to tier, and Bull Throwers. Okay, Bull Throwers are useful. Undeniably so, but you have Vol. Like, you want a siege element and not require siege attacker, you bring Vol. You don't recruit Bolt Throwers for their usefulness in battle. Because they're a damage over time artillery, or sustained damage artillery. They're not burst artillery. Burst artillery is always going to be more useful in a campaign. And besides, Sky Cutters, they're available as well. Can't show you here, but they are available. Much better, much more useful. Higher tier. But yeah, you're not getting this building for this. And again, it's undermining your economy. It's slowing your campaign pace. You don't need it. You're not incentivized to use it. It's pointless. A couple of changes have been made, but not the ones that actually matter. So if we look at the provincial capital, let me explain what hasn't been changed and what maybe should have. You still only have the campaign dynamic where you get only one noble at tier 2 and one mage at tier 3. And many campaigns do also start with a mage. So you've got 2 heroes for the portion of the campaign that matters until you get to tier 4 or you achieve short campaign victory condition. The problem is, regardless of how you play, regardless of how much territory you conquer, regardless of when and how you complete the campaign victory conditions, by the time you are tier 4, you've done everything that has any real consequence in your campaign. That is the point you've won your campaign, or reached a stage where it doesn't matter. People, when I say won the campaign, the cope crowd goes in and says, oh, but you haven't completed that. That's not winning. Winning is when you get to a stage where you are going to achieve that. It's just clicking buttons. It's not making decisions. It's not using your brain cells. It's not being forced to make decisions. You make those decisions early on. The best campaigns are the ones that keep allowing you to make decisions. This ain't it. And that's the structural problem with the High Elves that they do have. Lore Masters are still tier 4. Hero capacity for mages is still tier 4. Handmaidens have been reduced to tier 3, but it's only 1. Oh, so we got 3 heroes as opposed to 2. That's lovely. And then we increase capacity at tier 4. The issues here are monumental. First off, you can only increase hero capacity in a lot of cases through provincial capitals. You can't increase capacity for minor settlements. So not only do you have fewer heroes than other races available at tiers, look at dwarves, look at empire, but you also end up having fewer capability of scalability in a campaign. And worse, oh yes, this is worse, you end up recruiting 20 plus heroes in the same turn in the campaign, because the same time, roughly the same time you achieve short campaign victory condition is the same time that you reach tier 4. So for the same settlement, on the same turn, doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter what they do, doesn't matter what effects they have, you're recruiting 20 plus heroes, or roughly give or take. When you add in the Mist Mage, it's even more. You're probably looking at 25 plus heroes. On the same turn, when it no longer matters. Dwarves did this right, Empire did this right, Khorne did this right, Ogres did this right, Kislev did this right, Greenskins do it right. Every race that has been touched on by Creative Assembly since Thrones of Decay has done this exact framing right. High Elves haven't. And that is where we do have the problem, from my view. Yes, you get Flamefire's Phoenix at tier 3. Great, another great, useful unit. Not so much. Things like Arcane Phoenix are still locked tier 5, Star Dragons, all that. The unique units that Alfarian, Alifanar have, still locked behind playing those rewards. And it doesn't matter with Alifanar, you are fine without Shadow Walkers. It would be cool to use Alfarian's units if you confederate to them. You can't. So again, limitation of choices, limitations of variety. The best way I can describe this without going into review territory is they change certain things around, shuffle the chairs at the table, but it's the same table, it's the same chair. Roughly. It just has a prettier face on it, essentially. That's all I can go into right now on the details of what High Elves are. That's what they are. Same victory conditions, same dynamics, same pacing situation, just better confederations. So you don't have to play region trading or influence bullshit in order to get those confederations as before. Or you would never get those confederations except after 100 turns, where the campaign has long ceased to be relevant. It's better. It's also work in progress. That's the best way I can define it in a way that says what it is without going to review territory. And make no mistake, that review is going to be coming. Costine signing up. Stay tuned for more.